Hey, what's up? I'm Tommy West, and today I'm taking a look at the Motorola Nexus 6. Welcome back, I'm Tommy West, and this is the Nexus 6, which isn't necessarily new, but it's new for Verizon. So the Nexus 6 has been available for a little while, but this is the first time you can get it on Verizon's CDMA network, which makes it available to a lot more people. So if you're familiar with the Nexus 6, not much else has changed except for the fact that now it is on Verizon's LTE network. So ever since Google picked up Motorola, they've been putting out some pretty damn good phones. In fact, one of my favorite phones from last year was the Motorola Droid Turbo, which was Verizon's answer to the Moto X. So the Nexus 6 is kind of like the Moto X, except a lot bigger. You can kind of look at it like the iPhone 6 versus the iPhone 6 Plus. It's kind of the same thing, except much bigger. And speaking of the 6 Plus, this is actually bigger than that. So if you think the 6 Plus is big, this is even bigger. So a few things that I really like about the Nexus 6 is, first and foremost, the big screen is actually something I've gotten used to now, and I really like it. The screen is really large, so you have a lot of real estate to watch movies or YouTube, and depending on your hand size, your thumb may not get all the way across, so it might be difficult for one-handed operation. And that may not necessarily be a bad thing because the phone is actually really easy to hold. Now, more times than not, I find myself actually having to hold the phone with two hands to type out messages, but it's really comfortable. Now, this thing is straight from Google, which means you get the latest version of Android on here, which in this case is Lollipop. Now, I mentioned the Motorola Droid Turbo, and I used to carry that around in my pocket along with the HTC One. I know it sounds crazy, I actually used to carry around two phones, the HTC One being my main driver. Now, once I got the Nexus 6, I ended up dumping both of those phones for just this one in my pocket. Now, obviously it's bigger, so I couldn't fit that many phones in my pocket, but also it has a great battery life, which was kind of my anxiety of carrying around one phone that I constantly had to charge. Now, if you're like me, you probably charge your phone overnight and then while you're at work during the day. And with this thing, if I forget to charge it during the day, it's not gonna leave me with anxiety. Motorola packed a giant battery in this thing and it lasts all day long. So even if I leave Wi-Fi and Bluetooth on during the day, it's not gonna drain this thing to zero. And that's a really good thing because aside from the size of the battery, it's about how the phone actually uses it. So the Nexus 6 is pretty much vanilla Android anyway, so there's not much to go into when it comes to the interface. One of the standout things I actually really love about this phone though is the camera. Now, the front-facing camera has a little bit to be desired, but the camera on the back is actually really good. Now, the one thing I found frustrating, especially coming from devices like the HTC One, is the gallery app on here, which is non-existent, so you're forced to use the Photos app, which is a little finicky. And the photo editing features on here are not that great, so I'd probably recommend using Snapseed, which has been really improved recently if you haven't used it. And again, while I can rave about the camera on the back all day, the camera on the front facing you isn't that great. The selfie cam over here is just a little grainy and it doesn't do well in low light at all. So if you're more about taking photos of yourself rather than other things, I'd probably recommend a different phone. But if you're an amateur photographer and want something in your pocket that can take some great shots, this thing takes some awesome ones. Now, the camera on the back will get you about 13 megapixels, which is great for editing photos and getting a lot of detail. And that 13 megapixels is actually a 4:3 image, so if you see a square photo, don't get too hung up on it. Now, one of the surprising features of the Nexus 6 is the sound system on the front. The Nexus 6 gives you these two front speakers here, left and right, so you get that nice stereo sound when you're watching videos or movies. But the downside is that it's not that loud, either in the headphones or on the speakers. So if you're really into loud music or loud audio, maybe this isn't your phone. Now, I should mention, if you are a power user, there are some ways to tinker with it to get the audio amped up, but if you're not into that type of tinkering, maybe another phone is up your alley. Overall, I really like the Nexus 6, and it is now my daily driver phone, so that says a lot about what I like out of a phone. But as I mentioned, it's not 100% perfect, and it has some room for improvement. Now, as I mentioned, this phone is new to Verizon, and the only downside I have with that is the fact that it only comes in this one color, which is kind of a dark blue. So if you're not into the darker color phones, unfortunately, Verizon has only left you with one choice. If you have the Nexus 6 and you have your own opinions, let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel by clicking up here or going to youtube.com/GothamTommy. And follow me on Twitter @GothamTommy. For Pop Center, I'm Tommy West. I'll see you next time.